Hello, everybody. Welcome into the final episode. Yes, the final episode of the GSMC Sports Podcast. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. I will continue to do this show if you want to see more of me and more of this over at the Triple Threat Show on all of these same platforms, YouTube, everything else. Go check me out over there. But today we have quite the show. We have a new champion in the world of basketball. The Oklahoma City Thunder are your 2025 NBA champions for the first time since moving to Oklahoma City. SGA caps off one of the greatest seasons in NBA history, winning Finals MVP, Conference Championship MVP, winning a scoring title, winning an NBA title for the city of Oklahoma City. This is a crazy, crazy year for one SGA. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about the blockbuster trade that took place over the weekend. Kevin Durant traded from the Phoenix Suns to the Houston Rockets. What a crazy weekend in basketball. The draft is right around the corner. Just a couple days from that, we'll break that down and much more. But before we do, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you're on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me right here on a beautiful June 23rd. But like I was saying, we are going to start off our show here talking about, of course, the NBA championship game last night. Game 7. The two most beautiful words in sports can only be more beautiful by adding it to a championship round or the finals. And we got what we didn't really get what we were supposed to get, right? This game had all of the hype. A truly amazing series. A back-to-back and forth series. All 6 games leads to just disappointment. And I don't want to start this off by talking about, the Thunder didn't deserve it, because they did deserve it. So we're going to start off with the Thunder in this one. What did they do good to win here? First of all, they dominated the second half. They went out there after halftime. They made the adjustments they needed to against a Pacers squad that was doing everything they possibly could without Tyrese Halliburton to win this game. SGA was getting everything he wanted. 12 assists. 12 assists for SGA, 1 turnover. He had a magnificent game in the biggest stage of his entire career. The defensive effort from this team was incredible. They were able to force 23 turnovers off of this Pacers squad. Chet, especially on the defensive end, what he was able to do down low as a deterrent, driving to the paint for guys like TJ McConnell that had a pretty good second half. He was the big reason that the Pacers could not get a lot going offensively. That was a lot of good from this Thunder basketball team, right? They did everything that they could, and they deserved to win a title. But the big story in this game, as much as we don't want to talk about it, the big story of this game is Tyrese Halliburton, right? He goes down just 7 minutes into this game, 4:55 remaining in the first quarter. He goes down non-contact, which what has been confirmed now by Shams Charania, a report earlier today, is a torn Achilles. He was playing through a right calf strain already, and it's something that we've seen a little bit of a trend, not just across basketball, but across football, a lot of other sports. These calf strains lead to Achilles. They're in the same spot. When you try to play through a calf, you put more pressure on your tendons over there, and it just does not go well. That's what leads to Achilles issues. And now he's out for the rest of not just this season, which is done now, of course, but most likely for the rest of next season as well, dampering their chances of potentially going on a run in what a lot of people are perceiving as a weak Eastern Conference next season. It is just a shame, right? That's not the way this game was supposed to go. Tyrese Halliburton was coming out firing. He hit 3 of his first 4 shots. He had 9 points already in just 7 minutes of action. He was going to make a difference in that game. He's not a guy that usually comes out and makes a lot of baskets early on in the games, but what he was able to do to start off that game led the Pacers to the right kind of mindset, and he was incredible. Now, that was a devastating moment on the court. Him going down, screaming in pain, hitting the court in pain and frustration. That is not an image that's going to leave our heads as sports fans for a very long time. And it's unfortunate. That's going to be the poster of this finals. That's going to be the question. What if Tyrese Halliburton had been able to come out and play? But at the end of the day, I really don't know if it would have made enough of a difference. This was a Thunder team that just played really good basketball in the second half. You saw the effort that Pacers team played with, specifically the guys that were guarding Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Nembhard, of course, giving a whole lot of effort. Mathurin also giving a lot of effort. There were a lot of guys that stepped up huge for them. McConnell, he had a great third quarter. This is a Pacers team that, despite what some people might say, I heard some people before this game saying if the Pacers win, they're going to be taking away the royalty of winning an NBA title, which is a ridiculous thing for someone to say just because they don't have a LeBron James, just because they don't have a Kevin Durant, just because they don't have a Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, doesn't mean that this team was not incredibly well built. Does not mean that this team did not exploit the holes that that other teams around the NBA did not notice that they had. This team played with pace. This team played with speed, with three-point shooting, and with opportunistic defense. It wasn't the greatest in the world, but it was opportunistic. They forced mistakes by speeding the other team up. That is how you play good team basketball. That is an excellent coaching job by an excellent coach in Rick Carlisle. They went out there and they played like they played like the second best team in basketball, right? Without their star, they were winning after the first half, 48-47. Without their star in Tyrese Halliburton, they gave the Thunder a little bit of a scare in that fourth quarter, going on a little bit of a run behind TJ McConnell, who brought the lead down to single digits after they had started chipping away like they always tend to do. A couple turnovers kind of ended that run right there, but they were playing until the final whistle. They really were. You could see the emotion on the Pacers' face, what was going on behind the scenes. Obviously, without their leader, Tyrese Halliburton, it makes it a little bit harder. But to all the people out there that are saying this Pacers team didn't deserve to be in it, that's an insane take. Regardless, congratulations to the Oklahoma City Thunder. They win their first NBA title since moving from Seattle. First time in Oklahoma City. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander caps off one of the most incredible seasons of all time. You go single season runs for any player ever, this has to rank in the top 10. You're putting him in conversations with guys like Shaq, with guys like Wilt, for things that he has done, the amount of accolades that he has earned this specific season. It has been nothing short of one of the greatest seasons in NBA history, and he needs to get more prop for that. He really does. There needs to be more discussion about where he ranks all time, and there needs to be more discussion about where this season ranks all time. I haven't really seen it in my own head. We're sitting somewhere in that 6 to 10 range. We're talking about a couple Wilt seasons that were better, a Shaq season that was better. We're talking about a LeBron season or two that was better. But this was one of the most elite single seasons in the NBA history. They won 68 games as a team, not just offensively making the All-NBA team for Shai, but also the scoring title, of course, but averaging 30-plus points in the NBA Finals in the biggest series of his life. Stepping up there when they need him to, and being what would have been a third-team all-defense if they expanded it out like they do for the All-NBA team. He is an all-around player, and he is someone that is going to continue to dominate for a very long time. On top of that, he is just a good person. We saw the way that he checked up on Tyrese Halliburton when Halliburton went down in that painful moment, even in the heat of competition. He has been just a consummate professional and really just an excellent basketball player. And like I said, he goes out there wins an NBA championship for the Oklahoma City Thunder. This is just, it caps off one of the most magical seasons in NBA history. So congratulations to the Oklahoma City Thunder. Enjoy your summer. They really do deserve what they've done. They have a chance to start a new dynasty here. We've heard people talking about that, but this is the second youngest team to ever make the NBA Finals, the second youngest team to ever make this far into the playoffs. They win it now. They've been the 1 seed now 2 years in a row. They have a lot of guys under contract, and even if a couple of guys leave, they have the assets to go out and make a big splash move. Go out and get a Giannis if they really feel like they need that. But this team is young. They're only going to get better. If Chet can take another step up, especially on the offensive side of the ball, this team's, the sky's the limit for them. They could go on a little mini dynastic run before they have to pay everybody, but that team is about to get very expensive. So I'm curious, because Sam Presti has done an excellent job as a GM. Probably the best GM job we have seen in a very long time, a masterclass over there of stockpiling and getting great assets over and over and over again. But it's going to be huge how he handles the payroll coming up when we have to deal with the second apron and all these things in the new CBA that just got passed, that is currently ruining a lot of potential dynasties being set up around the NBA right now. The Thunder have a shot to 2-peat, 3-peat potentially. We haven't seen something like that since the Warriors did it, but they're in a position to potentially get it done. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on that, though. What do you think of the Thunder season as a whole? What do you think of Game 7? Congratulations to the Thunder, but we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we turn our attention over to Kevin Durant. The other big news from yesterday, Kevin Durant is 37. Kevin Durant is a future Hall of Famer, and most importantly for us, Kevin Durant is the newest member of the Houston Rockets. We'll talk about that next, here on the GSMC Sports Podcast.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits, some losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip, you choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
Welcome back to the GSMC Sports Podcast. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Monday, June 23rd, our final show here with GSMC. We will continue on, though, over at the Triple Threat Show. Find us all over the place, TikTok, YouTube. You find my beautiful face, you'll know where to look. But regardless of all of that, if you're just tuning in, we just finished going over the NBA Finals. The Oklahoma City Thunder are your 2025 NBA champions behind a magical season from one Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and an unfortunate injury to Tyrese Halliburton in Game 7. We had other breaking, massive news from around the world of the NBA with Kevin Durant. The first of the big offseason dominoes has officially fallen. KD traded to the Houston Rockets. We'll talk about who won that deal and much more. But before we do, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you're on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with us here on a beautiful Monday, June 23rd. But like I was saying, we are going to get into what's going on with one Kevin Durant. He was once again moved. Kevin Durant here was moved for just one first-round pick this time. At age 37, he was traded to the Rockets in exchange for the 10th overall pick in this year's draft, 5 second-round picks, Jalen Green, and of course, Dillon Brooks. This is an interesting move when it comes to the Suns side of things. And we're going to start off with them. Of course, they are a team that is very much up there when it comes to price. They're a team that did not make the playoffs last season. And those two things in conjunction is not what you want to see if you are an NBA team, fan, or front office. Devin Booker has not had a solid head coach ever in his career. 8 head coaches in 11 seasons for one Devin Booker. That is not the way that you want your star of the franchise to have his career play out. They make the finals a couple of years ago, back in 2021, and now 4 years later, they're down in the dumps right here. They move off of Kevin Durant for an interesting trade package. I, for one, still believe that Green can be a guy that steps up. He, 4 years into his NBA career, has not been a super consistent scoring threat, but he is a guy that can drop 30 on you any given night. That was the biggest weakness with the Rockets last season, right? They did not have a guy that could step up and consistently give them the offense that they need. They need a guy, and Kevin Durant can step in and be that guy, fill that role pretty easily, pretty solidly like he did before. It's really not going to change too much when you talk about what that Rockets team is going to look like. But for the Suns, they have more questions. First of all, did they win this trade? A lot of that comes down to what you feel about Jalen Green, right? Green is a guy that I still believe can be a pretty solid piece, not a number one option. So if you're looking at that, you're trading away a 37-year-old Kevin Durant for a guy who can help you with defense in Dillon Brooks, and a guy in Green who, on a good night, can be your number one option, but probably fills more of that number two role, especially if you have a guy like Devin Booker. When you look at the way that that team is built, though, you have 5 shooting guards on that team, on that Suns team. It is not how you want to build a roster, so it feels like somebody else should or will get moved. Green is rumored to be moved once again, so I don't know how long he's going to be tenured as a Phoenix Sun, but I don't know how much they're going to get back. You're talking about a guy that's going to be making $35 million a year, basically, for the next 3 seasons. You talk about making $33 million this year, $36 and $36 the year after that. It's a big contract for a guy that hasn't really proven himself as a for sure thing in the NBA. They want a center. That's been the thing that's been reported all around the league. Is Green going to be able to fetch a haul? If not Green, are they going to be willing to move off of Devin Booker if you're the Suns? Because that's something that I think they probably should do, go into full rebuild mode, maybe even center something around Green if you really believe in him. If that's the piece that you were wanting to get from the Rockets, you got him. That was a piece the Rockets wanted to move off of, it seems like. Seems like the Suns still believe in him. I wouldn't have made that trade if you don't believe in Green, you don't make that trade, right? So everything seems to be pointing towards the fact that the Suns truly do believe that Green can be something, but they need to make some moves. Bradley Beal said he'd be willing to move in the summer, so maybe he finds a new home, even though that trade clause makes it really tough for them to move him. We see potential rumors around Green getting traded, but the big one and the big question mark is, are they going to move off of Devin Booker? Booker has been kind of quietly in the background of a lot of trade rumors, right? To the Pistons, I've seen him mocked to a lot. We've seen him mocked all around the league. But I'm not sure if the Suns and owner Matt Ishbia, who has stepped in and said that whatever he was doing before wasn't working, despite him taking over an NBA Finals level team and reducing them in just 4 years to one of the worst teams in the Western Conference, despite having one of the highest payrolls. He's saying his hands-off approach did not work. He's now going to take a more hands-on approach. And I don't know how much he really was hands-off. I really don't. But some of the moves that the Suns have made seem like an owner that steps in, loves the game of basketball, and says, I know what I'm doing more than the NBA guys. Give me Kevin Durant. I know what I'm doing more than the NBA guys. Give me Bradley Beal. I know what I'm doing more than the GM. Let me make these decisions. And it kind of feels the same way with this Kevin Durant trade. As much as I like Jalen Green, as much as I think he can still blossom into something, this is not a great return for Kevin Durant. You might have expected them to get at least a position of need at center, which they really have not addressed at all since moving off of DeAndre Ayton. This is just not a great look. Now, for the Rockets, it's perfect. They kept a lot of that young talent. They moved off of Green, which could hurt in a couple years if he develops into the guy that I think he can still develop into. But you add Kevin Durant, who can step in and immediately be that go-to scoring option, which as the number 2 seed in the West last year, they were missing. They did it with defense. You kept a lot of that defense around. You do lose Dylan Brooks, who's a big part of that defensive mentality, but you keep these guys. You keep Tari Eason, who was amazing off the bench. You keep Jabari Smith, who was amazing for them in limited minutes. You keep the guys, you keep Reed Shepherd, who in limited minutes was one of the best shooters in college and in the G League. He steps up. He didn't play too much, but now he can get more minutes with Jalen Green gone. You hold on to Thompson. You hold on to Şengün. You bring in Kevin Durant. You have a really nasty trio over there with Thompson, Durant, and Şengün. And this is a Rockets team that, like we said, was the number 2 seed last year. They're very similar, very young team to the Thunder last year. The Thunder made their big move was bringing in Alex Caruso for not that much. Maybe the Rockets can make that jump that the Thunder did this last season to an NBA championship level team. You add Kevin Durant to that team, they at the very least beat the Warriors, right? That is of no question in my mind. They beat the Warriors in that series. The question is, do they beat the Timberwolves? Are the Timberwolves that next hurdle? It's going to go because the Timberwolves were the team that they lost to, obviously, or that the Golden State Warriors lost to in the next round. Now, injuries played a part in that, so I'm not going to ride it too heavily on those what-ifs, but I don't know how much this Kevin Durant trade really affects the Western Conference. It's going to be a really tight Western Conference again next year, right? You still have a really good Thunder team that's going to return all of those young guys. You have a Nikola Jokic-led Nuggets team that's going to be back, a Timberwolves team that has made it to the Western Conference Finals 2 years in a row, and if they can bring their guys back, if their guys don't want to go to the Nets, they're most likely going to be able to field a very similar team to the one they have right now. The Rockets find themselves in the mix of all of that, not to mention the Lakers, who have LeBron and Luka, assuming LeBron re-signs with the Lakers. This is a Rockets team that, as long as their defense stays relatively similar, as long as they're able to turn to KD, which he's been 50-40-90 over the last couple of seasons, amazing. Amazing. Kevin Durant is a future Hall of Famer at age 37. I'm not sure if you want a long-term Kevin Durant signing there. They'll give him a deal, I think. But for just one season, they might be a Kevin Durant away from winning a title, especially if they were in the East. They'd be the best team in the East right now. But they're not in the East. The East is its own set of mysteries and messes right now. The East has its 3 of its top teams, guards, all out next season with Achilles, all wear number 0 in Halliburton, Lillard, and Jason Tatum. But Kevin Durant to the Rockets is huge news. I think the Rockets probably win this trade by a pretty good margin. It depends what happens next with the Suns. If they're able to turn Green into something solid and turn this team around, if they're able to go full rebuild mode and get a whole bunch of assets, I'd be happy with that move for them as well. But if they sit pat with the team they have now, that is just a bad trade. Overall, it just doesn't make a lot of sense. But it started previewing a little bit. We're taking a break here. When we come back, we take a look at the Eastern Conference. With the Indiana Pacers losing, they would have been the favorites to repeat most likely, with the Celtics not having Jason Tatum, with the Bucks being just in shambles, with the Knicks not having a head coach right now. But Tyrese Halliburton goes down with an Achilles tear. He is done for the season, which probably takes the Pacers out of contention. Who are the teams in the East that are going to step up next season? We'll break down the possible options coming up next here on the GSMC Sports Podcast.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
Welcome back to the GSMC Sports Podcast. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Monday, June 3rd. The Thunder have won the 2025 NBA Championship, and this is our final show here on GSMC. You can find more of me over on the Triple Threat Show. Look it up on YouTube. You'll find my beautiful smiling face all over the place. That's how you know you found the right one. But regardless of all of that, we have a lot more basketball to get into. In our last segment, we talked about Kevin Durant getting traded to from the Phoenix Suns to the Houston Rockets. We turn our attention over to the Eastern Conference in this one. There is a lot going on right now in the East, specifically with injuries to big-time players wearing the number 0. 3 of them, Halliburton, Tatum, and Damian Lillard, have gone down for the year with an Achilles tear, taking their teams most likely out of NBA title contention. Now, there's still a lot of time left in this NBA offseason. The draft has not happened yet. We have no idea how this is going to fall, so it's hard to make accurate predictions right now. But we are going to take a look at the Eastern Conference and talk about a couple teams that could find a little bit of a head start as to finding a way out of what could be a wide open field next season in the NBA. Before we do, though, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you're on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Monday, June 23rd. But like I was saying, we are going to get here into a little bit on the NBA Eastern Conference. The NBA Eastern Conference is, well, wide open for one term, right? This is a year, or this is supposed to be a year or a series or an area of time that is dominated by the Boston Celtics with their young core. But Jason Tatum gone down. The team that stepped up in their absence, the Pacers, Halliburton down with an Achilles. The Bucks, the team that was dominant before the Celtics, lose probably Giannis in a trade, but also Dame to that same Achilles injury. So now we look at the field. Who is still standing when it comes to the Eastern Conference? There are a couple teams that I think could put their hat in the rings for the Kings of the East. We'll start off with the obvious ones, the one that have made the most recent moves. the Orlando Magic are a team that I put near the top of the Eastern Conference. If you were listening way back in the beginning of the NBA season, this NBA season, you would know that I was very high, very, very high on that Magic squad. This is a Magic squad that I think could have been, if they were healthy this season, a top 3 team in the East. You talk about Paolo Banchero, who's one of the most underrated players in the league. You talk about the Wagner brothers and that depth that they have. You talk about that team as a whole. It's very deep and it's very good defensively. You want to know what has won championships recently? It's not just a cliche. It's the saying, defense wins championships, right? That is what we have seen over the last couple years. You talk about the Celtics last year, best defense in the league. You talk about the Thunder this year, best defense in the league. Defense wins championships, right? You know what else you know what Orlando already has? Defense. Their issue has been shooting. You can have the best defense in the world, but if you can't shoot the ball, as we saw with the Rockets, you're not going to be able to do much in the playoffs. But they've gone out, what the Magic have done, they have traded for Desmond Bane. And Desmond Bane not only adds a 40% three-point shooter for you to help space the floor for a guy like Paolo that can take over a game, especially from the mid-range, but he also is really good on the defensive side of the ball. You don't surrender any of that defensive identity by trading for a guy that can shoot, and that is a luxury that not a lot of teams, not a lot of players have this now in the NBA. That is not an easy thing to get. It is a hefty price to pay for one Desmond Bane, but I think what he adds synergy-wise to that team could help them near the top of the NBA in Eastern Conference, at least for one season while everybody is injured and recovering. Now, of course, all of this does have to go well. No one can get hurt for this team to make it to the top, but there's a very simple path for them to make it there. The Orlando Magic are a team that should be talked about as a potential threat in the East, especially after acquiring one Desmond Bane. Outside of them, the team with the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference, the Cleveland Cavaliers, they're still up here. They have struggled in the playoffs. There's no doubt about that. But the number 1 seed was the number 1 seed for a reason. They're going to bring back that same exact team, basically. They're going to lose a couple of pieces, but the core of it is going to most likely be the same. You still have Donovan Mitchell. You still have Darius Garland, even though he's going to miss some time. You still have Jared Allen. You still have Evan Mobley. Those are your guys. Maybe you can even bring back Ty Jerome, which would be huge for them if they're able to do that. This is a team that was the number 1 seed in the East. They beat a healthy Celtics squad for the number 1 seed, but they weren't able to get it done in the playoffs against a Pacers team that just had a little bit of magic in them. This is a very good Cavaliers team, and it's easy to see how they could dominate the East again. Again, everything that worked for them this year could work the same way for them next year. They just need to stay consistent, they need to start to improve, and they need to work on what playoff basketball might look like. They've figured out regular season basketball, which is amazing, but they need to figure out playoff basketball before they can be a true threat when it comes to winning the Eastern Conference. The Magic, the Cavs, I'm going to throw this, the Knicks, of course, are that next team that could be there in the East. They move off of Coach Tom Thibodeau. They still have not found a head coach since moving off of him, but they make the Eastern Conference Finals. You have a core right now of Jalen Brunson, who just won Clutch Player of the Year, is one of the most insane hot hand shooters in all of the NBA. You have Cat, who, while he struggles a little bit defensively, is one of the best offensive big men in the entirety of the NBA, arguably the second best center in the NBA, right? You pair that up with a really solid wing defensive core surrounding that offensive depth of OG Anunoby, Mikal Bridges, Josh Hart, all those guys that can step up and play amazing winning basketball for you. They play less minutes. They're less tired later on in the season. Maybe we see that defensive intensity pick up later on in the year, and they can continue to be that 3-point killing team that made it to the NBA Finals last season. They won't have to contend with the Pacers, the team that's taken them out now 2 years in a row with their speed. And speed is the killer of a team that has no depth. That is what we see. That is obvious, right? When you have to run a marathon and the other team can just do a 5K, the team that's doing a 5K is going to come out looking a lot better than the team running a marathon, despite no matter what shape either guy is in. It's a lot easier to run 3 miles than it is to run 26. It really is as simple as that when you take a look at the matchup between the Knicks and the Pacers, but the Knicks are going to be a serious threat. They're a team that took out the Celtics. They're built to beat the Celtics. They were able to get that done. If they find the right head coach, and that is what is super important for them, finding the right head coach. They need to be able to find that guy that's going to step up, going to be able to fix that defense a little bit, hide the defensive inadequacies of Cat, because he is not the greatest defender. And when you have Jalen Brunson out there on the court as well, which you have to have, it's kind of easy to attack those two in a pick and roll. One of those two is not going to be able to stay on you defensively, and it's going to hurt your team as a whole. But this is a very good Knicks squad, right? We went over that base. They're very much a real threat to win the Eastern Conference. 2 more teams that I think could do it. We'll start off with a little bit of a wild card here. I know we've talked about how the Boston Celtics over and over again are out of it, but they are not out of it. They're still going to shed a little bit of talent, I think. But you still have Jaylen Brown. He's still going to be there. You still are going to have Derek White, most likely. He's still going to be there. You're going to have a pretty deep team already with the bench that you've got. I doubt they're going to have both Drew Holiday and Kristaps Porzingis, but I could see a world where they have one of them heading into next season. That's still a big 3 right there. It doesn't have Jason Tatum in it, but you still have a Celtics team that may not be the best team by far in the East when you look at it on paper, but they still have a guy that's won Finals MVP in Jaylen Brown. You still have a guy that's 2 guys, that were on the Olympic roster in Derek White and Jaylen Brown, and you still have a pretty deep team coached by a pretty solid coach, right? That is a recipe for success. This is a Boston Celtics team that is going to be a top 5 seed minimum in the East. And the reason I say that is because the biggest wild card of them all, the team that could take everybody by surprise in the Eastern Conference, it's the Philadelphia 76ers. This is a Philadelphia 76ers team that has everything on paper, right? We'll start off with the obvious one, Joel Embiid. And you might be saying to me, but Joel Embiid can never stay healthy. But what if? That's the fun of hypotheticals here, right? If Joel Embiid stays healthy, right? If Paul George returns to form, and I know that is a lot of ifs. You don't even need Paul George to return to all NBA level form. If he just returns to an all-star level player, you put that guy beside Joel Embiid, beside Jared McCain, beside Tyrese Maxey. That is an incredible big 4, not to mention you have the number 3 overall pick in this draft, in a very deep draft class. You can go out and get an Ace Bailey if you want. You can go out and get a VJ Edgecombe. You can get a shooter like Trey Edgecombe, like Trey Johnson or Jeremiah Fears. You can go out and get these guys. Take a flyer on Queen, Derek Queen, if you really want. Doubt they go there at 3, but that pick is wide open for them. You take off, of course, number 1 and number 2 picks, Dylan Harper and Cooper Flagg. Those 2 guys off the board. They're going to go 1-2 most likely. But after that, you still have a whole bunch of guys that have a lot of upside, a lot of potential. The 76ers could find themselves back at the top of the Eastern Conference if they stay healthy and if they nail this pick, which they haven't really drafted that well, if we're being completely honest. But I do believe that this is a 76ers team that can find their way to the top of the Eastern Conference. So we ask who's next up in the East, with the Pacers and the Celtics going down, with Damian Lillard and the Bucks going down. Who is next up in the East? We don't know. But it could be any number of teams between the Magic, between the Celtics, who's still up there, the 76ers, and a few other teams as well. Lots of stuff to watch because this is going to be a deadly offseason. The Knicks, of course, in there, the Cavs. It's going to be a very deadly offseason when it comes to aggression for trades. Nobody has any cap space. Nobody other than the Nets, of course, have cap space. But we'll have to see what happens. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, the NBA draft is on Wednesday, just a couple of days from now. We'll talk about the big stories surrounding some players. What's going on with Ace Bailey? Who's going to go at number 3? We'll talk about all of that and more coming up next here on the GSMC Sports Podcast.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
Welcome back to the GSMC Sports Podcast, the final episode here of the GSMC Sports Podcast. If you want more, you can find me every Monday, Wednesday, Friday over on the Triple Threat Show. Find my beautiful face. It'll be easy to see. But anyway, if you're just tuning in, lots of basketball today. Of course, the Thunder win the NBA championship, their first since moving to Oklahoma City. The news of Kevin Durant getting traded to the Rockets shocked the league on Sunday before the NBA Finals kicked off. Incredible trade over there for the Rockets. Really a head-scratching move a little bit from the Suns. And with the chaos in the East, with all these injuries, we talked about who could be potentially up next. In this segment, though, we turn our attention to who is next in the NBA. The draft, just a couple of days away. We know who's going to go number one. It's going to be Cooper Flag. We know most likely who's going to go number two, although I think there might still be an opportunity for a surprise there with Dylan Harper not going. But number three on, we have no idea what's going on. We'll talk about the NBA draft, what's going on with Ace Bailey specifically, and why he might be falling down draft boards. But before we do, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you're on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Monday, June 23rd. Like I was saying, though, we are going to get into what's going on with the NBA draft, specifically with Ace Bailey. Now, Ace Bailey is a very interesting basketball player, right? He was a guy that was projected to go number 3 overall at the beginning of the college basketball season, all the way up until the pre-draft visits began. But then a weird piece of news came out. Ace Bailey has skipped every single pre-draft workout. Now, that on its own isn't necessarily the craziest thing, right? We've seen surefire picks skip their draft workouts all the time. No need to work out if you know where you're going, right? You see Cooper Flag, who's only worked out with the Mavs. You see Ace Bailey, you see Dylan Harper, who is still doing his draft workouts, but you probably wouldn't be faulted if this guy is taking less draft workouts, taking it a little bit less seriously when he feels very confident that he, at the minimum, is going in the top 3, right? These guys know they're going in the top 3. We've seen this happen before, but Ace Bailey is not a for sure top 3 pick. And as much as I like Ace Bailey, as much as I think he can be a star in the NBA with his size, his shooting, and his ability to get to the rim, he has his own set of problems. Ace Bailey is not necessarily a for sure 100% fire going to be a star in the NBA, but he wants to be. And he's looking for a pathway to stardom. That's what he said. That's what his agent has said for why he's not doing these workouts. He wants to help dictate how it's going to go, what this process is going to be. But Ace Bailey not going to the Philadelphia 76ers has some not going to the Sixers workout has some pretty big consequences for him and for the rest of the NBA draft. If the Sixers decide he's not showing up to our workout, we're not going to take him. There's other guys that we like on the board, guys like Edgecombe, guys like Johnson, guys like Fears, all these guys out there that could be reasonably a number 3 overall pick. You don't know how much farther he's going to fall. Does he go I've seen him mocked all the way down to 6 at the Wizards, and I think if he gets there, the Wizards take him. I don't think he falls that far. I think he still ends up going number 3. He's been mocked there this whole time up until the most recent ones, but this is a huge piece of news for the mock drafts over there. And we'll do our final mock draft on Wednesday over at the Triple Threat Show. But right now, what we're looking at, how far is Ace Bailey going to fall? Because he is a raw talent. He's someone that needs to be developed in order to get everything you possibly want out of this kid that could turn into an all-NBA level talent, an all-star level talent year in and year out, and be that final piece to a team like the 76ers that could potentially make a run in the East next season with all the injuries going on over there. This is not a good look for him, if I'm honest, and I don't agree with the way that the agent is doing it. If you are a top draft prospect, even if you know you're going to go that high, there's no reason not to just show up to the workout. Show them what you have, especially if you have concerns about how they're going to use them. Go and talk to these guys. Go and talk to the GM. Go and talk to the team that might potentially draft you. Show them what you have. Show them what you don't. Don't really show them what you don't, but show them what you have, show them what you're trying to work on, and ask them how they're going to help you grow and advance your career. From there, you can make statements privately, publicly, saying, hey, we don't want to go here, or we do want to go here, but not showing up to workouts, even though, you're invited to it, you could go number 3 overall. It's saying kind of, we don't want to play in Philadelphia. We don't want to play here. It's not going to fit us. This is not the way that we're going to develop into a star, which is fine. But also, if you want to be a star, if you want to be the center of attention, you're not going to end up on a winning team. You're going to end up on the Wizards. You're going to end up on the Hornets. You're going to end up on the Jazz. Those are the teams that you're going to end up on, that 4, 5, 6 rung. Those are the guys that are going to end up picking you. And I think that's where he's going to end up falling. That is not a great spot for him a lot of the times. I think he could work out in some of those spots, but we've also seen those teams kind of struggle to develop talent, right? The Wizards have had 2 All-Stars since in the last 25 years, really. They have not drafted very well. The Hornets famously have not drafted very well outside of Kemba Walker and LaMelo Ball, who's still dealing with injury issues. You have a Jazz team that, yes, they drafted Donovan Mitchell and got Rudy Gobert later in the draft, but this is not a Jazz team that's really been great at developing these kind of guys. These are the poverty franchises that you're going to, right? And if you want to be a star, if you want to be the focus of attention, that's where you're going to have to go. But if you want to win something, if you want to have a great legacy as a basketball player, it's going to be a lot easier to do from a place like Philadelphia that already has an established star. Maybe you don't immediately step up as that number 1, but Joel Embiid, if we're being realistic, he's only going to play for so much longer, right? Joel Embiid, dealing with all the injuries that he has, I called for him to potentially medically retire at the end of this season, earlier on before the playoffs started, when the Sixers were still in the race, when he went down with his injury. I talked about how he might have to medically retire, right? Especially soon. He's dealt with so many injuries, not only to his knees and his lower body, but also to his head. He's broken his orbital bone twice in his career. That is not a common injury to have, and he's somehow done it twice, right? This is a place that in Philly you have the resources around you to be on a winning team, A, but B, blossom into a star, not have all that pressure on you immediately. If I'm Ace Bailey, the 76ers are the best place to go. You have mentors in Paul George that can teach you how to do it, in Joel Embiid that can teach you on how to do it. You have young guys like Jared McCain, like Tyrese Maxey that you can build a rapport with and have long-term connection. Being good with your teammates is something that really helps you turn into a star. That kind of teammate chemistry, it's huge. It's not a stat you can follow, but you're going to be a lot better if you work together good with your teammates. If you have a long-term connection with your teammates, it makes a lot of sense. He fits into that structure really good as well. He can play that 3 or 4 guard, which is exactly what they're missing. This is a perfect spot for him. But what he's doing, shunning the 76ers, saying, hey, I'm too good for you. I am going to be a star. You need to treat me like one, is only going to push him away from a really good situation. It's only going to push him towards a bad situation like the Hornets, like the Wizards, like the Jazz. And it feels like that's where it's going. Maybe that's what he wants. But if you asked him today, point blank, would you be happier spending the rest of your career as a star or winning championships? Sounds like he'd say he'd pick the star, which is not always the kind of guy, personality-wise, that I want on my team. We'll see what happens in the draft, though. Draft on Wednesday. I'd love to hear your thoughts, though, on Ace Bailey. What do you think he does? How far does he fall? And how bad of the look is this, really, for the Rutgers star? We'll be right back here on the GSMC Sports Podcast. Welcome back to the final episode of the GSMC Sports Podcast. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. It has been my pleasure to be here on this channel for all of you. I will continue my work over at the Triple Threat Show. Go check that out if you would like to see more of me. But if you are just tuning in, we just finished going over a lot, and I say a lot, of NBA news. Kevin Durant to the Rockets. The Thunder win the NBA championship. The NBA draft just a couple of days away. Who is the next team out of the East to represent the conference? But in this segment, we turn our attention away from baseball to another championship. College baseball is done. And it was an incredible season of college baseball. But the LSU Tigers are crowned at College World Series champions for the second time in this decade. They were dominant. They were the first team since 2013 to go undefeated in the College World Series. They did not lose a single game, all the way from the regionals to the super regionals to Omaha. They swept their way through the competition. Kyle Anderson, their ace, their pitcher that's going to go top 5, potentially number 1 overall, pitched a shutout, 2-hit shutout in game 1. But the big story of this series, the big story overall, is the way that is outside of LSU's domination, because LSU was dominant and they deserved to win this title. But the way that the umps handled in an argument in game 2, an elimination game of the College World Series. The final game turned out to be the final game of the season. Coastal Carolina, in the first inning, their manager got tossed in the first inning for arguing a couple of strike calls with the ump. It makes no sense. This is just like ejecting somebody in game 6 of the NBA Finals, in game 6 of the World Series. You cannot, for something as little as, hey, you missed 3 calls, eject a guy. He also was told he was ejected because he ran over an ump. He went out there, the ump stumbled over himself, did a little bit of a flip, landed on his back. That was not his fault. He said, I can't be held accountable for another man's athleticism or lack thereof. That is just a heartbreaking way to go. We had 2 championship series this weekend end on a whimper rather than a roar. Not necessarily because of anything the players did, but because of just events that took place in this game. That game overall was still very good. It was a fight all the way to the end, 5-3 final score after a 1-0 victory in the first game for LSU. And the Tigers, like I said, complete something that hasn't been done in 12 seasons. 12 seasons it has been since a team was undefeated in the College World Series. It was an incredible feat for them. It really was. We saw some incredible stuff earlier on in the College World Series with Arkansas and with their pitcher Gage throwing a no-hitter, a near-perfect game. The first one that's taken place in nearly 50 years, just the third one ever in the College World Series. It has been a very long time since something like that happened, and he threw a masterpiece, 19 strikeouts to advance to play LSU, where eventually they did lose that game. But LSU winning the College World Series for the second time this decade already continues that string of SEC dominance. SEC has been dominant in baseball for a very long time. Coastal Carolina, heading into that series, had not lost in nearly 30 games. They were riding a 28-game win streak heading into that series, looking to extend it to 30 games to end out their season. But instead, they lose 2 straight against a red-hot Tigers team. The 2 hottest teams in baseball meet as they should, and it comes down to a very, very good series. These 2 games decided by 2 runs or less, 2 excellent pitching matchups, 2 excellent pitchers, pitching battles, really, I should say, showed up at the very end. But LSU crowned your champion of the College World Series, second time in the 2020s. Congratulations to them. They're going to continue to build on what is one of the best college baseball programs in college baseball history. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on anything we talked about. I really would. It has been an incredible time for me to be hosting this show here on GSMC. As I've kind of alluded to way early on in our show, at the beginning of each and every segment, this is our final broadcast here for the GSMC Sports Network. It has been my pleasure to work here for a year and a half, basically. I really do appreciate my time here. I am not done. If you would like to see more of me, go check me out over at the Triple Threat Show. I will be there live Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, every single day, putting up shorts for you until you don't miss a single piece of sports content. But thank you, everyone. And I really do mean it. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to everything that I have done across 3 shows here at GSMC. And thank you for tuning in tonight here on the GSMC Sports Podcast. For the final time, I have been your host, Jeremy Lapidus. I hope to see you on Wednesday when we go over the NBA mock draft. But I'll see you at the Triple Threat Show. Bye-bye.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn, ain't that great. I don't wanna go to